Ezra Delacroix didn't believe in ghosts. But that night, as he was reviewing the photographs from his gallery's latest exhibition, something inside him clicked. Among the dozens of black and white images, painstakingly captured by renowned Parisian photographer Alain Moreau, there was a discrepancy that even his eyes, accustomed to the subtlest detail, couldn't miss. All the photos contained shadows, contours, presences, and in at least 5 of them, there was a woman. But her name was nowhere to be found in any of the files. None of the photographers remembered seeing her. No visitor mentioned her. Worse still, in the high-resolution digital images, she simply did not exist. Only on physical negatives. Only on paper. Ezra held one of the photographs in the dim light of his office. The silhouette of the woman, long hair, pale skin, dark dress that seemed to vibrate against the washed-out background of the scene, stared back at him. There was something in her eyes. A plea. A warning. That night, he didn't sleep. The next morning, he called Alain. The call went straight to voicemail. Hours later, he received a black envelope in his mailbox. No signature. Inside was a handwritten letter in delicate, almost fragile handwriting. Stop looking for her. She's gone too far. And you're the next one to be remembered. Ezra didn't know if it was a threat, a warning, or an invitation. But he knew, and this hurt more than he could explain, that he had seen those eyes before. Not in the pictures. In your dreams. The next morning, Ezra walked through the empty gallery, his footsteps echoing against the dark marble as if the architecture itself were in mourning. The lights had not yet been turned on. The black velvet curtains left the darkness reigning supreme, as if it were necessary, as if it could only exist like this, between the lines of darkness. He stopped before the exhibition's main image, the staircase of the Hotel Beauvais in Paris, captured with an almost supernatural glow at dusk. It was a familiar image. Aesthetic, yes, but ordinary. What disturbed him was that, in the lower left corner of the frame, visible only when viewed from a certain angle, it was there, in profile, slightly turned toward the lens. The mouth is half open, as if saying something, or whispering. Ezra brought his face close to the glass, his breath lightly touching the surface. "You know me," he murmured, to no one, or maybe to her. The next moment, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned quickly. Empty. Not a living soul in the gallery. No logical explanation. That exhibition was no longer just in the realm of aesthetics. It was invading his mental space. What if she was in part of the work? What if it was the other way around? What if he was being exposed? That night, back at his apartment, Ezra couldn't stop thinking about her. He tried to remember the exact moment the feeling had started. It hadn't been in the gallery, or when he'd looked at the pictures. It had started earlier, days earlier, maybe weeks. The feeling that someone was watching him while he slept. The feeling that certain objects were moving by the tiniest fraction of an inch. The scent of a scent left in the air, jasmine with something woody, mysterious, sensual, almost animal. This presence was not new. It was old, family, intimate. Ezra lit a single candle on the mantelpiece. The building's electricity had been out for the past few days. He didn't care. The darkness was becoming part of the process. In the bedroom, on her dresser, there was a picture frame that had always been empty. A gift from her mother before she passed away, with the phrase engraved on it, "For the day when someone deserves to live in your memory." And now, there was a picture. It was her. Ezra held her. His hands were shaking, his eyes fixed on the image. She was sitting on the edge of his bed, the bed where he slept alone every night. The same sheet, the same crumpled pillow on the left side, the same glass of water, the same shadowy reflection in the background. But that photo had never been taken. Not for him. And yet it was there. Ezra didn't know her name, but she clearly knew everything about him. Ezra spent the night poring over files, old boxes, forgotten negatives. He looked for any trace of that woman. A clue, a name, a mistake in the records. But she was always on the fringes, as if she were a subtle reflection between the pixels, a deviation of light between the lens and reality. He called Alain again. Nothing. The gallery was silent, but not still. Ezra began to notice small disturbances. Chairs turning slightly, a protective cloth sliding away on its own. The presence sensor in room 3 going off at 3:17 a.m. every day, always at the same time. On a sleepless night, he decided to wait. He got dressed as if he were going out, turned on only the hallway light, and stayed in room 3. Silence, darkness, only the sound of his own heart. At 3:17, the motion sensor went off. He didn't move. He didn't even blink. But the light came on anyway. Ezra stood up and walked to the exact spot where the security camera was. He then checked the video. Nothing, or rather something. For 0.3 seconds, a blur, an image that seemed to fail digitally, and then an elongated shadow projected on the wall, but with no physical object to justify it. It was her. He knew it. A few days later, a woman appeared at the gallery. She was wearing a black dress, low heels, and her hair was tied up in a messy bun. She had no name. She didn't sign the guest book. She didn't speak to anyone. But Ezra saw her. She walked calmly. She passed by the images as if she recognized them. She stopped in front of the steps of the Beauvais Hotel. She stood there, silent, almost moved, as if she were contemplating something she had lost. Ezra approached slowly, afraid she would disappear if he made a noise. "It's you, isn't it?" The woman did not turn around. "I thought you'd never notice," she said, her voice echoing more in his bones than in the air. "Who are you?" She turned around. Ezra froze. It was the face in the photos. It was the face of the woman on the edge of the bed. It was the face he saw in his dreams. She smiled. "I am what remains when time erases what is real." And then he left. She left behind an envelope with a single photograph, Ezra sleeping. She was beside him, eyes open, her hand on his chest. On the back, a handwritten sentence. "Only when you stop looking will I be able to tell you who I am." It took Ezra days to process that, and nights to accept it. Ezra began to carry that photo with him, not in a frame, not in a diary, inside the inside pocket of his jacket, like a secret glued to his skin. At meetings, at dinners, in the elevator of the building, she was always there, that enigmatic woman, with her eyes open, lying next to him in a bed that should have been empty. Something in him began to change. He felt watched in places that had once been intimate. He felt a kind of uncomfortable excitement when he opened doors, as if he would find someone waiting on the other side, and secretly he wished that was the case. The routine became a performance. Loneliness became a stage. She was in his every gesture, not through words, but through presence. Silent, insinuating, emotionally intimate. And then the dreams began. In the first, Ezra was in the lobby of an old hotel. Red carpets, unlit chandeliers, clocks without hands. He knew he was waiting for someone. He could feel it. When the revolving door moved, he didn't see anyone come in, but he smelled the perfume. She came up behind him and whispered in his ear, "You left the light on in the mirror." He woke up sweating. In the bathroom, the mirror was fogged, but there were marks, as if fingers had been pressed into the inside. Ezra pressed his forehead against the surface. His own breath reshaped the word that had appeared in the vapor. "Remember me?" He didn't remember, but his body does. The body recognized, and that was more dangerous than any name. The search became an obsession. He hired restorers, experts in analog photography. One of them, too old to carry an ego, said something Ezra couldn't forget. Some images are not meant to be seen. They are meant to be felt. There are records that capture more than light. They capture intention. Ezra swallowed. And when the intention is to return, the old man just smiled, as if he didn't want to be responsible for an answer. That night, Ezra's bedroom door opened by itself at 2:43 a.m. He wasn't scared. He was lying there, shirtless, a sheet around his waist. He felt the mattress give way beside him. A light, familiar, almost sweet pressure. And then he heard, "I'm tired of hiding, tired of being a memory. I can be real if you let me." He didn't answer. His mouth was dry, his body paralyzed by the perfect mix of fear and desire. A touch, cold, soft, delicate, fingers slowly moving up your chest. lips touching her collarbone. And then she said, "But if I'm real, you won't be able to forget. Ever." Ezra turned his face and saw her. Not like in pictures, not like in dreams, but there, whole, human, frighteningly alive. He touched her, and the world seemed to vibrate inside. She was there, the woman who until then only existed in unexplained images, in sensory dreams and trails of perfume suspended in the air. Now before him, real, and more than real, present dense, impossible to ignore. Ezra reached out and touched her face. Her skin was cool as freshly polished marble, but it yielded beneath his touch as if it were alive. Her eyes, black as wet ink, never wavered from his. "Are you real?" She inclined her head gently. "Do you believe it?" He didn't answer, not with words. He just kissed her. It was a strange kiss, not like those of pure desire, nor like those of affection. It was a kiss of recognition, of reunion, as if that moment had been awaited by lives he didn't remember having lived. Her tongue tasted of forgotten things, old wood, jasmine, iron, and absence. She pulled him closer, straddling him like an untamed memory, and whispered as their bodies began to meld together. "Now you will begin to disappear from yourself, little by little." Ezra didn't understand right away, but the next day he understood. He woke up exhausted, even though he had slept for almost 10 hours. When he looked in the bathroom mirror, something was wrong, not with the reflection, but with what he didn't feel. It was as if a part of him had been taken away, small, imperceptible, as if someone had removed a comma from his thinking. But he knew, he felt. When he opened the closet, he noticed that one of his favorite perfumes, the one he always saved for special occasions, was gone. He didn't remember using it, or giving it to anyone. And there was no sign of a break-in. Nothing. Only the bottle is missing, and a folded paper on the pillow. "You lent me a night. Now lend me a memory." Over the next few weeks, Ezra sank into a state of semi-existence. He was alive, yes. He walked, he ate, he signed contracts. But something about him seemed less present with each passing day. The woman's face, which he mentally called her with a capital S, as if she were an entity, now appeared in reflections in shop windows, in the shadows of the fire escape, in the crack between the door and the wall. Sometimes he would blink, and he was sure she was sitting on the bench next to him. Other times, I heard whispers in the dark, but I could never hear what she said. And then people around started acting strange. "You look more pale," said Lucien, the gallery curator. "Did you sleep on the floor?" asked the cleaning lady, finding shoe marks next to the bed. "You were forgetting simple things, Ezra. Signatures, times, dates," his personal assistant complained. Ezra just smiled wearily, because deep down he knew she was taking it. Not things, but parts of it. Ezra began to write, not by choice, but by instinct. I filled pages and pages with loose phrases, drawings of eyes, words repeated like mantras. She was here. She knew before. I can't forget what I never lived. The papers piled up, under the bed, in pockets, in the car, on restaurant napkins. But when I tried to reread them, it was as if someone else had written them. One night, he woke up with something cold on his chest. She was there, sitting next to him, naked, with her long hair falling over her shoulders. In her hands, an old camera, the same one from the exhibition. "I want to capture you," she said. "Why?" "Because you're almost ready." "Ready for what?" She smiled, a smile full of pain, tenderness, and regret. "To remember who you were before me." She clicked, a sharp click, and the image was captured. Ezra tried to grab the camera, but it was gone. The next day, an envelope appeared on the table in his gallery. Inside was the developed photo. Him, lying down, sleeping, but with one impossible detail. In the reflection of the mirror in the background, there was no one in the bed. Neither does he. Only her, sitting, staring straight into the lens. A look that begged for something Ezra couldn't name. That night he returned to the gallery alone. He spent hours in front of the painting on the staircase, not because of the art, but because of the reflection in the glass. And she appeared, there, behind him, like a blurred image that, little by little, became clear. She looked at him as if she were looking at a farewell that needed to happen. "Ezra," she said, soft as mist. "There are things that only exist in the instant before they are forgotten." He reached out. He wanted to touch her. He wanted to stop her from disappearing. She hesitated. "If you touch me now, it will be permanent. You will never be able to go back to who you were." "I'm not anymore, am I?" She didn't answer. She just came closer, pressed her lips to his ear and whispered, "Then close your eyes and come." Ezra obeyed, and the world went dark. When he woke up, he was in an unfamiliar room. The walls were lined with old mirrors, all covered in white veils. The sound of a record player playing something old, melodious. The smell, the same perfume. Jasmine, wood, something ancient. She was there, with a cup in her hands, sitting as if she had always lived in that place. Where are we? In a space between what you forgot and what never happened. Is this a dream? No, that's a memory you haven't lived yet. Ezra sat up. He felt light, but also deeply fragile, as if he were suspended. She looked at him tenderly. "You're almost empty, Ezra. And that's when men are at their most beautiful." Why? Because only those who empty can truly see. Feel. Be touched. He wanted to cry, but the tears didn't come. She pulled him in for a kiss. A different kiss. No desire. No flesh. A goodbye kiss. And he whispered, "It's time to wake up without me." Ezra woke up at his bed, his heart racing. Everything was in its place. The window half open, the books piled on the floor, the half-empty glass of water on the bedside table. But he knew something had changed. The pillow next to it was sunken. He stood up slowly. The bathroom mirror was clean. For the first time in weeks, there were no marks, no words in the steam. But then again, he didn't recognize himself at all. The look in his eyes was the same, but something behind it was missing. At breakfast, he brought the bread. I couldn't remember the name of the delivery man I saw every week. It took a whole minute to remember the code for his own cell phone. Little by little, the days began to seem blurry. Time flowed but did not settle. Conversations passed him by like wind. The faces around him lost their clarity. Even the smells, the perfumes he himself had so carefully curated, began to seem diluted, vague. Except for one, jasmine with wood. It still followed him, like an invisible signature stuck to his skin. One afternoon, in the middle of a boring meeting, Ezra drew something in the corner of his notebook. It was her face, without thinking, without wanting to. And next to the drawing, a sentence, "I'm here. Only you see me." He stood up in the middle of the conversation and left without apologizing. He returned to the gallery. It was closed that day, but he went in. I felt like I needed to be there. In the main room, in front of the staircase, he waited. For minutes, then for hours. And then, finally, she appeared. Not like before, not as flesh or spirit, but on the surface of the glass, in the reflection, subtle, serene. "Are you still looking for me?" she asked, her voice coming from nowhere and everywhere. Ezra smiled wearily. "No, I just miss you." She looked at him with something close to pity. "Lack is what keeps me alive." He approached the glass. He touched it with his fingertips. She did the same on the other side. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. Then she replied, "I am everything you loved, but never had time to remember." Ezra closed his eyes. He felt a tear fall without warning. When he opened his eyes again, she was gone, but his reflection remained, for the first time full, and strangely complete. Months later, Ezra Delacroix published a new exhibition, Invisibles, black and white photos of ordinary places, empty streets, forgotten hallways, rooms with crumpled sheets. But in every image, there was something out of place. A shadow outside the light source, a disembodied reflection, a movement in the corner of the frame. The public was divided. Some said it was an artistic provocation. Others claimed the photos were possessed. But everyone, without exception, reported the same feeling. By looking at the images for too long, they felt as if someone was watching them back. In the lower corner of each frame, a discreet signature in silver ink. She never left the picture. Ezra, sitting at the back of the exhibition hall, watched in silence. In his hand, the black envelope that he had never gotten rid of. Inside, one last photo. He alone, looking at the reflection of the Beauvais staircase. And behind him, she smiled.